I've been trying all 160 overclocks in Deep Rock Galactic, and I'm here to tell you the strengths and weaknesses of them all. This week we're playing Engineer, rolling with the electric Stubby SMG and the versatile Breach Cutter. First, let's talk about Micro-Conductor Add-on. Formerly known as Turret Arc, this unstable was buffed to include the ability to electrify platforms as well as create an arc between your turrets. In exchange, you have a fire rate and ammo penalty. Both penalties are pretty harsh, but the gun is still usable for self-defense against small groups. In exchange for this, you get probably the best choke point defense in the game. The electric petals and arcs slow enemies massively and eat away at their health, and while they aren't capable of finishing off more than a grunt on their own, when put together they can form a deadly defensive line while also opening up enemies for easy shots and keeping the team safe. Overall, this is a great overclock for any engineer who enjoys setting up a defensive line, although you'll really want to be careful with your ammo usage. I'd also recommend not using repellent additive on the platform gun, and you'll want Gemini turrets to use the arc to its full effect. Up next is EM Discharge. This one is very similar to Microconductor, but it has its own differences and niches. This one comes with a damage and mag size decrease, and rather than a long-lasting puddle or arc of electricity, this creates a sizable blast of energy that damages and electrocutes all enemies within range on a short cooldown. This is great for more mobile engineers who prefer to kite rather than stand their ground, and it's more usable in short notice scenarios as it requires less setup and less RNG. Overall, it's a good option for neutralizing crowds, although like Microconductor, it makes the gun a little bit worse at self-defense. Well-oiled machine gives you a faster rate of fire and a faster reload. This simple clean is good for making the gun do things faster, whether that's damage output or electrocution. The faster reload ensures you aren't spending more time reloading than shooting, and it's good for keeping you fighting in general. Hyperalloy Assembly reduces the base spread of the gun and gives you a substantial weak point damage increase, but it decreases your mag size and massively boosts the recoil. Like other overclocks of a similar nature, this one is great if you like to tap fire the SMG or fire in short bursts. The weak point damage increase in particular makes the weapon a killing machine if you can consistently land weak point hits with the massive recoil. Overall, trying to hold down the trigger at anything other than close range will likely prove impractical, but in short bursts is a very potent DPS option provided you have good aim. Lightweight rounds gives you a big boost in ammo, but a small reduction in damage and fire rate. Overall, this improves the Stubby's longevity, and while it does make it a bit slower at killing things, it's not that bad of a penalty, although the damage reduction does keep you from one-shotting swarmers, even with both damage upgrades. If you find yourself chewing through the Stubby's ammo pool very quickly, then this is a good overclock to help pad out your supply a little. Next is EM Refire Booster. This gives a big boost to fire rate and adds little electric type damage, but increases the gun's base spread. With this overclock, the Stubby turns into a rapid DPS option for close range, and it's even serviceable at medium range damage. Overall, it's a great pick for close range self-defense at the cost of medium and long range accuracy. Finally, Super Slim Rounds. This simple clean gives a boost to mag size and a reduction in base spread. This helps extend the Stubby's effective range and keeps you firing for longer. It's a nice boost for engineers who prefer to keep their targets at medium range. It's also great for just taking out Mactera and other targets that tend to stay at a distance. Now on to the Breach Cutter. I started with lightweight cases. This clean increases your reload speed and gives you a bit more ammo. Overall, it proved very effective at switching to the Breach Cutter for backup. The reload time reduction helps soften the incredibly slow reload and the low mag size of the weapon, and the extra ammo lets you lean on it a little bit more for when its strengths come into play. Spinning Death gives you a massive penalty to damage, ammo, and mag size, but makes the beam last longer, spread wider, and instead of moving forward, it spins rapidly in place. This makes the beam very good at whittling down top enemies as the beam overlaps them for far longer. It's also good for cleaning up swarmers and generally locking down choke points. Its effective range is much shorter though, and without the mag size upgrade, you'll need to reload after every shot, so it's better to use it as a defensive tool rather than an offensive weapon. Inferno reduces your damage and armor break, but makes the beam apply a large amount of heat. This is overkill for grunts, but it's great for taking care of guards who can survive a pass of the beam under some circumstances. It's also good for residual damage on anything tougher like Praetorians, although they won't burn all the way to death. It's still a net gain in damage on most things that get ignited though, provided you can wait down the burn timer. Now on to Return to Sender. This allows you to reverse the direction of the beam if you hold then release the fire button. In exchange, you lose a lot of ammo. Since this is an additive ammo penalty, it actually scales pretty well with the ammo upgrades, although even without them it can be useful. It's great for bursting down Praetorians, and it can also be useful against large crowds closing in, as the second pass will likely catch any stragglers that didn't get caught in the first pass of the beam. It also has some decent synergy with Explosive Goodbye, as it allows you to get a full pass of the beam and then a second half pass with the explosion. Overall, it's a great DPS increase, although you'll need to learn to use it sparingly. Roll control is an interesting one. It increases the lifetime of the projectile and makes it rotate rapidly, as well as giving you the ability to steer the beam towards the cursor. Practically, neither of these benefits are extremely useful on their own, although both are nice to have. The rotating projectile covers a large vertical cave area without sacrificing any horizontal coverage, making it decent for tunnel clearing. The steering can be good for those hordes that don't conveniently line up, too. It's a nice overclock for anyone that wants to make sure they just hit everything in one shot. Now on to another clean, stronger plasma current. This also gives a projectile lifetime bonus along with a small damage increase. The damage is good for edge cases where the beam only grazes an enemy, as it makes said enemy more likely to still die from the beam, and it gets you a little extra punch against tough targets, although it's nothing massive. And finally, high voltage crossover. This is very similar to Inferno in that it makes your beam apply a debuff, but this time it's electrocution and it comes with a mag size penalty. Overall, this has less damage output than Inferno, but depending on what you're shooting at, the slow might be more useful, particularly on ultra tough targets that won't go down in 1 or 2 beams, even with the burn. It also doesn't have quite as much of a drawback as Inferno does, making it a less transformative option. And those are all the overclocks for the Stubby and the Breach Cutter. Both are very unusual tools that can really pull weight if you use them properly.